Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the experience and the decision that shape who we have become. Our today's guest is Bruno Pesec, an innovator, advisor, and strategist who help organizations turn ideas into real, measurable results. With experience across multiple industries and a track record of unlocking significant business growth, Bruno is known for challenging how companies think about innovation and what truly drives impact. It's really a pleasure to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So, Bruno, you have worked with organizations across multiple industries. What first sparked your interest in innovation and strategy?
Oh, that's a good question, Aro. So it started, all the way back. I was always a curious child, wondering how do things work, why do they work, and kind of it just spiraled out of there. And I studied as engineer. I was looking into systems, etc. But the biggest thing was when I started working as an engineer. I work on a train, one of those freight trains that you fill with powder, and then you transport the goods across the land. And we had a customer that came and they had a request they believed was impossible to make. So I was one of the engineers on the team, and we spent weeks, developing a prototype. And eventually we achieved the impossible. We made the best product, but the product failed in the market because nobody believed it was possible. So it was an invention, but it was not innovative yet. It did not create value for the people because the perception of it was skewed. And for me that was really, really important because I realized, working with innovation isn't just about making the best thing in the world, because you also must understand how people talk about value, how people think about value, what is useful, what is not. So innovation isn't just about technical side, but it's also about human side. And that was now, 12 years ago. And from there, I went to explore that, how do actually good ideas come to life? How do we develop them? How do we bring ideas to life in large organizations and then just...
Oh, amazing. And I think this is just lovely being that, yes, there's a whole lot of good ideas out there that doesn't get to work, and having to solve that first problem of yours and discovering that, we'll solve it, but it's not something that's going to be kind of sellable. And actually more like I'll tackle the particular thing or something. Yeah, that was really amazing. So you have helped unlock over £1 billion in revenue. What is the biggest misconception company has about innovation?
The biggest misconception is large enterprises, they treat innovation like something that happens. They do not actively manage it. They think, if we have creative people, if we put a lot of money, magic is going to happen. Magic does happen sometimes, but not always. So a very, very large mistake is failure to manage innovation effort. Because any idea, if it's really innovative, that means that it's uncertain, which means that we can do everything right. So both you, Ara, and me, we can do all the right steps, everything that's considered best practice, and we can still fail at innovating because it is uncertain. So the only thing that we can control is what we do, how we behave, how do we invest in ideas, how do we invest in people, how do we manage our efforts. So that is a pretty big one, because if we do not approach it as something manageable, what we are basically doing is gambling. And gambling is never good, at least not for building businesses, especially sustainable and repeatable businesses.
Yeah, I think this is really key, being that a whole lot of person does not treat innovation as something you need to kind of manage and work on, but something that just happened from a blue moon. And your explanation to us is just people. That's something you have to manage, you have to work on. And amazing. So many organizations invest heavily into innovation, but see little return. Why does this happen?
Yeah, so part of this issue is, as I said, they don't actively manage innovation. But what happens in every organization, the processes already exist, even if they're not formal. So in every organization, there are three big process areas that are happening all the time. Even if you have not written down the procedures, even if you don't have the governance documents. One of those processes is how are ideas selected and vetted. If it's not formally written, there is usually one person, and everybody in the organization knows, like, if I have an idea, I should go to that person, I should share my idea with them, and then it's going to move forward. That's one. Then connected set of processes is how do ideas get matched with resources? How do they get approved? How do they get money? How do they get more people to work on them? Again, in organizations where that is not formalized, it's usually more on social relationships. Do I know the right executive? Do I know the right manager? Can I get in front of them? Can I understand what's happening? And then a third big process area is managing risk. Because really, as I mentioned earlier, every innovative idea is uncertain. The only thing we can try to manage is risk, identifying what are the critical assumptions, what must we focus on today, what are the inside gaps to develop this idea, along the maturity stages. So all of these three, they're happening all the time. The best organizations in class, those that see returns, they understand these processes and they actually formalize them to an extent, not entirely, but they formalize them just enough so that people in the organizations can innovate successfully. Because humans, all of humans, even those that they say they are not, they are creative. We are creative by our very nature. Some are more creative, some are less creative, but every human is a creative. And it's a huge missed opportunity to not leverage the creativity of your own people in every organization. But it's the job of the leadership, of the managers, to create the environment that supports innovation, to create the governance systems, to create simple pathways. If I have an idea, how do I check if my idea is relevant for my organization? And if it's relevant, then who do I go and how do I get resources to develop this idea? And this all sounds super simple when we're talking about it like this, but every organization struggles with it because it is a systemic issue that's often overlooked because there's always something else that comes to the fore.
I think this is just more like Aurelia amazing that, creativities can be built and innovation can be built in a whole lot of organizations, but it all depends on the environment being created. If more like at the end of the day, the company gets to kind of punish those who try different things out to see what could happen different, or more like see better way of getting things done, and they are being fired, the whole lot of things has been done. And I think this kind of environment shrink innovations compared to those that actually encourage it and even give more like kudos and credence to those who are trying out different routes towards solving problems. And I think it's really amazing, just the way you said. So you have mentioned that many companies focus on ideas instead of flow. Can you explain what that means and why it matters?
Okay, this is one of those controversial topics.
Yeah.
So what I usually say to clients and people I work with is don't waste time on prioritizing ideas. Because what often happens is, for example, management might organize an ideathon or some sort of event where they say, hey, this is our big company challenge, or this is a new market we want to enter, let's gather ideas. And in one case, there was 80 ideas after such an ideathon. And then a group of innovation manager, a few executives and few people, they sat down and they were like, we are going to prioritize all these ideas. And then when they ranked them, and it took them 3 days to do so, they ended up with a list of ideas that they didn't know what they were about. So they said, okay, we must investigate this because we don't understand what these ideas were about. And then they spent few months of completely wasted time. Because what is much, much better is letting ideas flow, letting them filter. So that means that when somebody proposes an idea, first filter is, okay, there's this idea. Does it fit the strategy of the organization? If not, just return it back to the person who proposed it. They should work on it or discard it because it's maybe not relevant at all. If it passes the strategy filter, then it goes, customer fit, what is this about, etc. Every organization is unique. So instead of trying to prioritize every idea, You let them flow through the system so people can work on it, evolve it slowly over time. Because another thing that often happens with innovative ideas, something might sound like great idea today, but after we experiment with it a little bit, we find out, oh, this is not so promising as we thought. That's a great success, because then we can stop it. So we just say we are stopping this idea. But if you're collecting ideas and then trying to spend weeks on putting some numbers in a spreadsheet, how is this promising, yada yada yada, and we try to end up with some prioritized list, what's most likely to happen is that it was total waste of time, that those ideas are going to be handed over to somebody else, which is another big problem, and they will question, okay, what do I do with this idea now? So it's a whole host of problems. It's much better to switch the mindset from we, the great leadership, prioritize ideas, to we, leaders as managers, it's our job to define the filters. What is relevant for the organization? And then we just let people flow through the system, and we let the system take care of it, because that ensures that any idea that comes then to executive attention is worth of their attention, because the idea has proven itself over time. And that's the best thing that can happen, and it's most natural, because this is connected to, you asked me about returns. Investing in innovation is pretty much a numbers game. You cannot put 100 billion on a one idea. What you have to do is you have to put 100 on a portfolio of ideas. There has to be a volume of them. And if you have a big volume, imagine if you try to prioritize them every day or every week. You need to have a system that supports such volume, that allows it to pass, to filter, self-filter through employees. So that is all connected. And I keep talking about, this systemic approach to managing innovation.
Yeah, I think this is really amazing, being that ideas on its own does not work anything until it been tried out, it being implemented to see what outcome it could actually make. And I think it just speak volumes. So the flow you make reference of, the flow coming from the fact that you get to try a whole lot of couples of ideas and see the one that doesn't work. The one that the one that doesn't work discarded, and the one that work, you keep renovating it till you get what is true. I think this just speaks volume, other than filtering it without necessarily trying it out. Which sometimes on the surface, ideas does not work anything. Be that some of them you don't even know what work, what is going to kind of speak volume, or what is going to bang at the end of the day, until you try it out and see which different way you could actually apply it. Yeah, it's really amazing. So what is innovation accounting, and how does it differ from traditional way of measuring success?
Okay, innovation accounting is quite novel field, if we may call it so, and it arose from need, and that is, we have to measure our efforts. We have to measure if we're coming closer to our goal, to the target, and our success. And what we usually use are traditional financial metrics, and they're okay, measuring EBITDA margin, profitability, discounted cash flows for investments, etc. These are all good, but they are not fit for purpose for very early stage investments in innovative ideas. Because especially in large organizations and traditional, more conventional industries, if you have a legitimately innovative idea, it can take anywhere between 3 to 7 years before we start seeing significant revenue, profits, increased profit margins, etc. We have to have something to measure before those 7 years kicks in. Like, what are we going to do? Hope for the best? A lot of companies were hoping for the best, and it didn't work out. This is where innovation accounting came in. It came in to fill this gap. What can we measure that will indicate that we are going in the right direction before we are able to measure revenues, profits, etc. That is very, very simplified what innovation accounting is. And one of the main things in the early stage is, instead of measuring financial metrics, we are basically measuring the speed and quality of learning of the innovation team, because we are saying the better the team is learning about their idea, market needs, product needs, etc., the more likely is it that that product is going to succeed. So we are basically measuring the quality of their innovation process. The other thing that we can be measuring is we have to identify, and this is very specific for every industry branch and a company, we have to identify for a given business idea what is the signal that customer might be buying in the future? Because obviously at this stage we have nothing to buy. But what is the second best thing? And this is going to vary a lot between the industries, especially, if it's business to consumer or if it's business to business. In some cases, it might simply be they're positively reacting and they're signing up for our service if it's B2B. For large business to business, it might be they're willing to sign letter of intent or something where they have a little bit of skin in the game.
Skin in the game, yeah.
I don't want to go too much into accounting. Sometimes people fall asleep from that. But the concept is, what do we measure to ensure that this idea is still worth investing in and that we're on the right track before we can start measuring traditional financial data?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really lovely being that I think it just speaks volumes to things that you could actually get to know whether more like whether it's worth testing the water or you should just leave it out entirely. That ideas on its own, by trying it out, costs a whole lot. There should be a measure where you can try things out to know, does it worth it, or is it something we can actually more like, is there a long term to this? And if there's a long term, which company is looking forward to it? For the companies B2B and for the basic B2B little businesses, going to be which customer are currently demanding for it, or do you foresee that they are going to demand from it in the future? Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah, so you work with both startup and large corporation. What does startup consistently get right that big organization miss?
Okay, so the most important thing, the most valuable thing that big co's can, I don't want to say learn, but relearn from startups is focus. When startups start, they have one customer, one product, one business model. Everything is about that customer segment. Everything is about that product. So it's laser focus. They have no other choice because they don't have resources. They don't have time. They are unproven. So they must go all in on that one thing. The bigger the company is, the older the company is. I often work with companies that are centuries old. And they have so many legacy products, so many legacy services, portfolios, etc., which sometime in the past they were relevant, but they're not anymore. They have strategy for buying toilet paper. They have strategy for painting their walls. There's strategy for every single thing. So they lose their focus, which is a side effect of them growing. But they can slim down. They can refocus because companies are dead. They're just writing on a piece of paper. It is us, humans, working in companies. And humans perform best when we have 3 to 5 goals or objectives. Not if we have 72 objectives, because every business unit has 3 to 5 of their own, etc. It's confusing. It's almost impossible to deliver. And that is, again, it goes back to what you asked me, profitability, a problem with managing innovation. It all starts from the top. That is the job of leadership. The job of leadership is to clearly say, this is what we stand for, this is what we're focusing on. It's not necessarily their job to say, Bruno and Aro, this is what you're going to do day to day. It's not their job to micromanage. But I want to know, where are we going? Okay, we are going there. So all my effort in that direction. Exactly. That is the thing to relearn from the startups, not, move fast, break things, do this, do that. That's all irrelevant. Focus.
Narrow focus. That's really amazing. Being that, getting a whole lot of things done at the same time. At the end of the day, there's going to be confusion, and they wouldn't know at what point. And I think they just speak volumes to the stories of Steve Jobs that I actually got to hear that. Especially when he actually left the company, and when he comes back, he discovered that there's a whole lot of arrays of products they were actually developing, and he couldn't identify which one he should choose part time. And I was like, if I can't figure out what product to choose at this time, how do you expect your days to make reference of a particular product to choose? It was then he actually more like externalized out the layers of product that needed to that was available, that was easier, being that if you as a producer were confused about what product to pick from the myriad of products you created, what do you think about that of the client? And it's really amazing. So how can leaders balance short-term business goal with long-term innovation without sacrificing either?
For that, what is most valuable, what has emerged as best practice approach is sometimes we call portfolio approach. It's important to be investing simultaneously in things that will yield short-term results while also investing in initiatives that are more long-term. I like to use the analogy, of going to gym. Like one day you wake up and you say, I want to be stronger.
Yeah.
If you go to the gym and if you put too many weights at once, you're going to injure yourself.
Yeah.
So you cannot go from I'm lifting, 30 kilos to I'm lifting 150 kilos without slowly training over time. So you have to have short-term successes, a little bit of weights every training, so you can get stronger and stronger and stronger. So maybe a year or a few years from now, you will be able to lift that great weights. It's the same thing with innovation. Like people think, I'm waiting for that brilliant idea. But guess what? If that brilliant idea comes along, there's no guarantee that you will be able to exploit and use that idea and opportunity if you haven't already invested in your people, in their capability to innovate slowly over time. That does not happen overnight. So the leaders, it's not a trade-off. I have to do this short-term versus long-term, but it's rather how do I balance my portfolio of initiatives and investments so there's a good number of them that are building the company short-term, core business, and that are creating and altering the future for us. So it is about balancing that rather than either or. And this is, again, back to the leadership, how you think about how you run your company.
Yeah, amazing. I think this is really key being that, yes, when you look at the long term, you actually train your staff, train everybody who actually work with you to know more and everything. When idea comes, execution becomes easier and innovation easily flowing in, being that they know how to do things differently compared to when those long-term plan is not being put in place. And when idea comes, they couldn't do much with it, being that they don't know much. Yeah, it's really amazing. Well, Bruno, it has really been amazing having you on this particular session, and thank you for the whole lot of insight. Yeah, you have got to share all into this particular period. So for my audience who would love to kind of reach out to you either for coaching or to reach out to you for some couples of our help in there, or to reach out to you for more content you already have out there, how can they reach out to you and how can they connect with you and which platform speak volumes to
Well,
this?
to everybody who is listening, Aro has all my contact details, but otherwise you can find me on LinkedIn, Bruno Pesec, or you can reach out on my website, www.pesec.no. Everything I've spoken about is available there. I publish regularly. There's a ton of articles, newsletters, everything for free that you can use to be more successful and to innovate profitably. So don't hesitate to use that material. And thank you, Aro, for great questions and great conversation.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Bruno. Your work challenging the way we think about innovations, and not as a buzzword, but as a discipline, measurable and result-driven practice. Yeah, your insight reminds us that true innovation is not about doing more, but about doing what actually matters. And it's really amazing. And definitely for my audience who would love to reach out, check the show notes. You see the link to the website, how you could reach out to Bruno and one of his social media too. Yeah, once again, it's really a pleasure and honor having you on the show, Bruno.
Thank you.